Why are you here alone?
I just need a moment.
Paralyzed CEO was abandoned at her wedding, then a single dad asked, "Why are you here alone?" The wedding hall was still glowing when the last car carrying the groom disappeared down the driveway. Inside, hundreds of white roses surrounded an empty altar, untouched champagne waited on silver tables, and a bride in an ivory gown sat alone in her wheelchair beneath the fading lights. She was Amelia Carter, a powerful CEO who had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, yet on the day she was supposed to marry the man she trusted most, he had abandoned her because he could not accept the woman she had become after paralysis. Amelia stared at the wedding ring on her finger, trying not to cry, when a single father carrying his young daughter's forgotten pink jacket stopped beside the entrance, looked at her for a moment, and quietly asked, "Why are you here alone?" Amelia did not answer immediately. Her pride had protected her for years, and tonight it was the only thing keeping her from completely falling apart. She had spent the afternoon surrounded by people, photographers, executives, relatives, and friends who had congratulated her on finding love again. But now the music had stopped, the guests were gone, and the man she expected to stand beside her had left without even giving her the dignity of an explanation. Her hands trembled as she looked toward the empty doorway. She had survived the accident that took away the use of her legs. She had survived months of painful rehabilitation. She had rebuilt her company while learning how to live differently. She had faced investors who doubted her, competitors who underestimated her, and strangers who looked at her wheelchair before looking at her face. But she had never imagined she would have to survive being abandoned at her own wedding. The man standing near her was Daniel Brooks, a quiet single father who had been working at the venue that evening as part of the event staff. He was 38, modestly dressed, and far removed from Amelia's world of luxury and corporate power. His daughter Lily, an 8-year-old with a warm smile and a habit of asking too many questions, had been waiting outside with a babysitter while Daniel finished his shift. He had only returned inside to retrieve her jacket when he noticed the bride sitting alone. Most employees had already left. A few had whispered about what happened, but Daniel had not needed an explanation to recognize the look on Amelia's face. It was the same look he had once seen in his own daughter after her mother failed to return for a promised visit. It was the look of someone discovering that the person they trusted most had chosen not to stay. Daniel did not treat Amelia like a fragile woman or a wealthy CEO. He simply treated her like a human being who was hurting. He asked whether she wanted someone to stay until her family arrived, but Amelia quietly admitted that she did not want anyone from her family to see her like this. Her parents had warned her about the marriage from the beginning, convinced that her fiancé cared more about her money and status than her heart. She had refused to believe them. Now, with the wedding ring feeling heavier than it had moments earlier, she wondered whether everyone had been right. Daniel noticed that her hands were cold and placed his jacket over her shoulders without making a dramatic gesture. For the first time that evening, Amelia looked directly at him. If you believe that kindness can give someone hope when they feel completely forgotten, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to SoulTales for more stories about kindness, second chances, and unexpected moments that change lives. Daniel stayed beside Amelia while the wedding hall slowly became silent. He did not ask intrusive questions. Instead, he talked about ordinary things, telling her about his daughter's obsession with astronomy and how she believed every shooting star carried a message from someone who was no longer around. Amelia listened quietly, and eventually a small smile appeared on her face. It surprised her because she had forgotten what it felt like to smile without pretending. Daniel eventually helped her reach the quiet side entrance where her driver could pick her up. Before leaving, Amelia thanked him for staying. Daniel simply told her that no one should have to sit alone after a day like that. The next morning, Amelia returned to work determined to bury the previous night beneath spreadsheets and meetings. Her company was preparing for its largest expansion in years, and she believed work could keep her from thinking about the wedding. But something unexpected happened. Daniel had left a small paper crane on the reception table before he left the night before, and one of the venue employees delivered it to Amelia with her belongings. Attached to it was a simple note saying that sometimes broken plans make room for better ones. Amelia kept the crane beside her computer. She could not explain why, but she found herself looking at it whenever the pressure became unbearable. Days passed, and Amelia discovered that her former fiancé had not merely abandoned her. He had secretly withdrawn from the marriage after learning that her accident had affected her ability to have children naturally. Worse, he had been discussing her medical history with business associates, treating her private struggles as weaknesses that could affect the company's image. Amelia felt humiliated, but this time she refused to collapse. She ended every remaining connection with him and began confronting the truth she had avoided for years. She had spent too much time proving she was strong and almost no time allowing herself to be loved. Meanwhile, Daniel's life was far from easy. He worked 2 jobs to keep his daughter in school and had quietly accumulated debt after spending years trying to give Lily the stable childhood she deserved. He had no idea that Amelia's company was about to open a new community employment program for people who had experienced life-changing injuries. During a presentation about the program, Amelia remembered Daniel's kindness and asked her assistant to find out whether he was interested in becoming part of the project. She did not want to repay him with money. She wanted to create an opportunity that respected his abilities. Daniel initially refused, believing Amelia was offering him a favor because of what happened at the wedding. But Amelia insisted that she had reviewed his work history and discovered something she had not expected. Daniel had previously worked in logistics management before becoming a father and had left his career to care for Lily after his wife walked away from their family. His skills were exactly what Amelia's company needed. Eventually, he accepted a position overseeing the new community program, not knowing how deeply the decision would change both their lives. As weeks became months, Amelia and Daniel began spending more time together. Their relationship did not develop through grand romantic gestures. It grew through small moments. Daniel learned how Amelia liked her coffee. Amelia learned that Lily was afraid of thunderstorms. Lily began leaving colorful drawings on Amelia's office desk. Amelia began attending Lily's school events whenever Daniel's work schedule made it difficult. Slowly, Amelia stopped seeing Daniel as the stranger who found her abandoned at a wedding and started seeing him as the man who had witnessed her at her weakest without ever making her feel weak. One rainy evening, Amelia visited Daniel's small home to deliver paperwork for the community program. She saw Lily asleep on the couch beneath a blanket while Daniel sat nearby repairing an old lamp. The house was modest, but it felt warmer than Amelia's enormous mansion had ever felt. She realized that she had spent years surrounding herself with expensive things because she was afraid of emptiness. Daniel had almost nothing compared with her wealth, yet his home was filled with the kind of love money could not purchase. But just as Amelia began allowing herself to hope again, her former fiancé returned. He claimed he regretted his decision and wanted another chance. He tried to convince Amelia that he had been afraid, that the wedding had overwhelmed him, and that he still loved her. Amelia listened without anger. Then she looked at the wedding ring she had once believed represented forever and finally understood something important. Love was not the person who stayed when everything looked beautiful. Love was the person who stayed when the flowers were gone, the guests had left, and there was nothing to gain. She removed the ring and placed it in his hand. Months later, Amelia returned to the same wedding venue. This time, there were no hundreds of guests, no photographers, and no expensive decorations. There were only a few close friends, Lily standing proudly beside Daniel, and the people who had become part of Amelia's new life. Amelia arrived in her wheelchair wearing a simple elegant dress. Daniel stood waiting for her, nervous and emotional. The place that had once represented her deepest heartbreak had become the place where she finally understood what genuine love looked like. Daniel had once asked her why she was sitting there alone. Amelia later told him that she had no answer because she had believed being abandoned meant she was unwanted. Daniel reminded her that sometimes the people who leave are simply making space for the people who were always meant to stay. Their wedding was quiet, imperfect, and beautiful. There was no billionaire celebration, no extravagant performance, and no attempt to impress anyone. Lily carried the rings, smiling through tears, and Amelia looked at the people beside her with a gratitude she had never felt before. She had entered that first wedding believing her life was ending when the groom walked away. She left the second ceremony knowing that her life had actually begun when a stranger refused to let her face that pain alone. Sometimes life breaks the future we planned because it is leading us toward a future we could never have imagined. Amelia did not need someone to rescue her from her wheelchair. She needed someone who could see beyond it. Daniel did not need Amelia's wealth. He needed someone who could see the sacrifices behind his tired eyes. And Lily did not need a perfect family. She needed people who chose to stay. If this story touched your heart, please support the video with a like, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to SoulTales. Your support helps these emotional stories reach people who may need a little hope today. Before you leave, comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe one small act of kindness can completely change someone's life. Because sometimes the person who asks, "Why are you here alone?" becomes the reason you never have to feel alone again.